Welcome to another episode of the When Life Happens podcast. I'm your host, William Jackson, and I'm so excited because we have another opportunity to live, learn, and grow together. And we are officially live in the new When Life Happens studio. I'm so excited. It's been a long time coming, and we are excited to bring you elevated content and creating spaces where we can continue to sharpen one another, to lean in and to gain perspective and insight and walk away better. That's the whole goal for the entire show, is for us to walk away better. So I'm excited because this episode is going to be one of those that is very vulnerable. It's very true. It's very recent as of sorts. And if you're listening to this on your podcast platforms, you can hop over to YouTube and check out the new studio. And thank you so much for those who are rocking with the podcast, who are intentionally sharing it, who are liking it. Every time you like, every time you share, it pushes the message out to more people. It tells every algorithm that the When Life Happens podcast needs to be heard and seen by more eyes and ears. So thank you for your support. Thank you for those who are supporting financially. Those who are saying, you know what, I want to be a part of this mission because of what you are doing and what you will continue to do. We're doing things like elevating our studio, bringing you more content. If you want to hear more episodes consistently, more episodes than once a week, consider partnering with the shows, because we want to create spaces where we can allow us the safe space to grow. So today, we're going to talk about a situation that recently happened, actually, while my wife and I, we were working on the studio. We were getting a lot of things situated and putting the final touches. And you know, let me pause right here. It is imperative for anyone who desires to do anything of value, anything great, anything intentional, to be most intentional about the person you select to do life with. Why? Because the person you select to do life with will have the ability to either push you towards purpose or to pull you away from it. So I got to pause and give a shout out and kudos to Mrs. Jackson, my wife, Stephanie, because she's the one that helped me get everything together to make sure that things were hanging in the right places. And while we were getting things ready for the new launch for the new studio, there was this project that fell to me because I said, I got it. You know, it's one of those things as a man, you know, we see certain things, tasks, and men can be very task driven, task oriented, and we can just jump in and say, you know what, I got it. That's me. That looks manly. I need it. Give it to me. Oh. And behind me, in the right corner of the shot, what you'll see is a new shelf. And the shelf in itself, if you're looking at it, you can tell it is not a traditional shelf where there are just panels that go all the way across the specific aspect or radius of the shelf. This shelf is unique. It is intricate. It has many parts, and it is very, what's the word I will use? It is very much one of those pieces that will test you. It'll stretch you. And I got the instructions, like most men. I took a glance and said, okay, this makes sense. What I did not prepare for is a multiple hour ordeal that could have been rectified by just doing a few simple steps. So I'm going to talk to you about the need to just follow the instructions. Now, you may hear something in this episode that may convict you, that may provoke you to want to be better, and that's the goal. But this is really me telling on me. And, you know, I feel like if this is going to be a safe space for us, that I got to be willing to open up and share. So let's take a look at the shelf for if you will, just for a few moments. If you just take a glance, take a look and see what you may see behind you. You know, there's There's several different shelves, several different spaces. There's intricacies. It's things that is going all in the shelf. There's so many things that are happening. And I pulled it out. And once I pulled out the shelf and all of the nuances, and I laid all the pieces out, took a glance at the instructions and said, okay, this makes sense. And so I started out and I put the baseline and lined it up, connected to two pieces. And as soon as I start to add the pieces that were going upward, I could tell that something was off. And I said to myself, I think this is supposed to be this way. But something inside of me said, you know what? I don't feel like taking this all apart and starting over. So I literally said to my wife, I said, you know what? I'm just going to go rogue. I'm just going to jump out here and I'm going to just do what feels right. Because I feel like with all of the nuances and all of the things that are taking place within these pieces and the shelf, that I could just figure it out. So it probably was maybe about 45 minutes in, maybe almost an hour, where I realized, because here's the thing. I started building it, and I was like, okay, well, this looks like it could go here, and this looks like it could go here. Let me just put this here. And I just started putting random pieces together in different places and different spaces. And I got it pretty high up. And the structure was pretty much, I'd use majority of the pieces. Now, think about this. You have instructions and a plan to build something, and instead you literally go off course, you go rogue, go off the beaten path, and I pretty much use majority of the pieces. So the structure is pretty much built. And the level of comedy that took place during this process was uncanny, because my wife would peek in periodically, and she's so supportive, and she'd go, okay. I see where you think you're going, oh, okay. All right. Well, I believe in you. And all inside, I just knew that I was headed down a horrible path. However, I kept building. One, because when I got started initially, I was tired. I was automatically ready to go. I was at a space where I said, you know what? I really just want to get out of here. So let me just do whatever I can as quickly as possible, because I just need to get this up. I need to get it done by any means necessary. And herein lies the first problem, is because a lot of us start building from a place of exhaustion. A lot of us are in a space and place where we're trying to create something, where you're trying to be intentional about your destiny, your dreams, your goals, but you start building from a place of exhaustion. And what that does is, when you are tired, you start cutting corners. When you are tired, you start cutting corners. And this is what happens. I started building, and because I committed to it, even though I knew it was wrong, I said I was going to see it through. Here's my question. I'll pause here. How many times have you started something and you knew in your heart, in your mind, that the direction you were headed down was the wrong direction, but you committed to it? And you say, you know what? I'm just going to see it through. I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to be intentional. I'm not going to throw in the towel. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to see it through. The saying goes, if at first you don't succeed, try again. What I say is, if at first you don't succeed, figure out if you were supposed to try in the first place. Just pause for a moment and ask yourself, was I supposed to do this, or was this a choice I made in a moment of exhaustion, or in a moment where I just didn't have my creative bearings, where I just didn't have my footing, and I compromised the credibility of the structure that I'm building, compromised my destiny, I compromised my goals, I compromised my relationship, I compromised all of these things because I felt the need to see it through, even though it may not be the best thing for me? What are the things that you may be in a space in your life where you say, you know what, I started this, but it didn't seem right. It didn't seem like this was the thing for me. It didn't seem like this was the job for me. It didn't seem like this was the place for me. What are those places in your life where you feel like you just consistently, we get into these cycles where we're just going around and around, and we're on this never ending merry-go-round because we are committed to things, even at the expense of our peace, at the expense of our rest. So many things that we commit to limit us from having the capacity or the capability to effectively rest. And when we are tired, when you're tired, you're more likely to be more snappy. You're more likely to be irritable. You're more likely to be in a space where you are not your true, authentic self. So the goal here now, take it from me, is creating spaces where you could thrive in capacity by making sure that you have the necessary energy to see through what you commit to. Get into a space where you can be intentional about having the necessary energy to see through what you commit to. Otherwise, you put yourself in situations like I was with the shelf. So I'm building this shelf out, and I am putting random pieces in random places, and I know it doesn't fit, but I'm trying to force it because I started down this pathway. Herein lies the second problem. I'm trying to force things that I know don't go into these slots. Why? Because I'm committed and I'm working, and I reach a point finally after using majority of the pieces. I'm talking about I only have a few pieces of this shelf left available. And I look at it and I realize that no matter how hard I try to make it work, this is not going to be a functional shelf. And whenever you use something outside of the lens of what it was created for, you then in result make it dysfunctional. And if we're not intentional, we can consistently put people and places and things in spaces where they don't belong, and we by default make them dysfunction. By default, creating spaces where we are putting things in situations where it does not work here any longer. How many things have we put in places and in spaces that they were not meant or created for, and ended up compromising the integrity of their ability to perform at a high level? So I was creating this shelf, and I got to the end of my rope. There's always a place where you come to the end of yourself and you realize, I'm going to have to start this all over. Now, this is after about an hour of trying to figure it out. And eventually I had to take out every screw. I had to undo every part. I had to take off every bracket and start from the beginning. And what I realized in the little nuances of what I did wrong, if I just had followed the instructions, I could have saved myself so much time. Everybody, I believe, has a set of instructions that are specifically for you. There's a plan, there's a destiny, there is a pre-written course, things that are set in place for your life. And if you can lock in with the plan and just follow the instructions, leaning on someone else's wisdom who came before you, because the essence of what happened with the shelf is that I had to follow the instructions that were laid out for me by the person who created the shelf. And once we get in a place and space where we realize that there are certain things that I didn't create, that I need help with, so many of us have problems asking for help. I got it. Listen, I talk about this in my book, When Life Happens. There's a whole chapter dedicated to this mentality. The name of the chapter is I Got It, because I used to be the king of it. I literally used to be in a space where every single time something came up, I got it. I got it. I got it. Nope, I got it. But I realized that I had to get into a place where I was intentionally exposing myself to receive the help that I needed. Otherwise, I would be in spaces where I was unable to perform at the highest level, or I would be operating in dysfunction. So I took every piece of the shelf off. I started. And much to my wife's surprise, I wasn't frustrated. I wasn't angry. You know, if you're already tired and then you have to start something over, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be frustrated. You're going to be doing the entire thing begrudgingly the entire time. But I wasn't, because I realized that it was my fault. That if I had just followed the instructions, I wouldn't have been here. And when I got to a place where I realized that I could have saved myself this time, I had a choice to make. Either I could get frustrated at the task ahead of me, or I could take accountability for my action, for the things that I was doing, for the things that I was going to actually step into and take accountability for what I was doing, and then allow that energy of accountability to shape my direction. And then I could use that energy of accountability to drive my ability to finish the concept or finish the structure, finish what I was building. So I decided to take the accountability for my actions and use the energy of accountability to shape my ability to follow the directions and to see it through. I'm going to tell you one of the things that's limiting people from actually stepping fully into what they were created to do and what they were created to be is because they are unable to accept the accountability for their part of the equation. It is very, very easy to look at someone and say, you did. It is very easy to look at something from a situational lens and say that it wasn't my fault. That if they had did this, if they had did that, then I might not be in the situation that I'm currently in. It's very easy to. It takes intentionality to say, what did I do? And how could I have been better? If I just would have stopped and realized that me trying to do it my way was not only causing me to waste time, but it was causing me to waste valuable energy that I already didn't have. And when we're not intentional about slowing down and actually just following the instructions, leaning on someone else's wisdom, figuring out a plan, having an established plan, and not just going rogue off course because this is what I feel. I say all the time, your feelings are irrational. And if you follow them, you will lead a life of irrationality. They change from moment to moment. Happy, you're sad, you're angry, you're frustrated, anxiety. Things filter through your emotions consistently, and your emotions are situational. So we got to be intentional about saying, you know what? How can I get to a place where I become not just the master of my emotions, but the master of my direction? And a lot of that has to do with leaning into the aspect of saying, I need a plan. And after I outline a plan, I need to follow the instructions. I need to have a clear directive of where I'm headed and how I need to get there. Because if you don't have a plan and you feel like you're just going to make it up on the way, trust me, you are going to experience the frustration of having to circle back and start it all over. Could it be that some of our cyclical nature is due to the fact that we don't have a concrete plan before we get started? What are you building? What are you trying to build? What are you in the spaces where you're trying to become more advanced, or you want to expand, or you want to be better in your health, or better in your business, better in your relationship, and you're trying to wing it? So many of us are just trying to wing it. We'll figure it out. And while that may be fun, it can also be very frustrating. Because if you don't have a plan, you're in a space now where you're opening yourself up to difficulties that you may not have needed to walk into. If you don't have a plan, then you're walking into things that you cannot be prepared for. I said on the last episode, proactive people fall less. Proactive people fall less when you have a plan, when you are working and you're following the instructions of the plan that's already been laid. You limit your risk and you limit the ability for you to fall and have to experience unnecessary stress. But so many of us are actually starting things without having a plan. We're just going to flow. And I'm all for the flow in certain areas. But when we're building, we can't just flow. We need a plan. When we're building, when we're trying to establish something, when we're trying to create, when we're trying to do something that's outside of the norm, you may be the first. And whenever you're the first of anything, there is a lot of pressure to live up to. The first person who may be in your family who's not going to get divorced. You may be the first person going to college. You may be the first. You may have a undue pressure on you just for being who you are. And when you don't have a plan, you add to that pressure. So if I'm going to do something at a high level, guess what I need? First, a plan. A detailed plan, not just a few bullet points. Because when I pulled up the instructions for this shelf, it wasn't just this, this, and this. Not only did it outline the things that I needed to complete the task, it outlined the steps of what went where and when to do what. So if you got a plan, you got to first know, what do you need? How many times have you started to try to build something and you have no assessment or awareness of what it takes? So many people get invested in things and have no idea what it takes. So what are you in a space of understanding to know that, one, I know what I need. Then after I know what I need and who I need, what's the detailed plan of when to do what? Because if you can master the when, knowing when to move, knowing when to tighten, knowing when to set things up, knowing when to speak, knowing when to actually be more aggressive, knowing when to be more collaborative and quiet. When you have the ability to master the when, you gain power over the what. So not only knowing what I need, who I need, the tools that's actually going to get me to the finish line, knowing when to do what. Gaining power over the when gives you power over the what. And when I saw the directions from start to finish, not just a glance here and there, but at each step, check back in with the plan. At each step, does this coincide with where I'm headed? Am I doing the thing that I know that I need to do in this moment to create spaces for me to continue doing this the right way? And then, do I have the energy to see it through? We talked about this on a few episodes ago. When you talk about your energy budget, do you have the energy available for the yes that you're about to give? Because if not, you're setting yourself up for frustration. So we got to get to the place where, one, I have the instructions. Two, I know how to read them. Three, I stick to them. Because without the instructions, we're just trying to wing it and going rogue. You're setting yourself up for frustration that is unnecessary. You gotta have a plan. Without a plan, you're setting yourself up for failure. And no one, trust me, no one in any stretch of the imagination wants to be in a place where they have to start all over from the beginning. But what I learned about myself is that there are times where I can be slightly impatient because I want to get things done fast. And while speed and efficiency are two of the main things that people are operating in this day and age, if you have the inability to slow down, you run the risk of missing valuable instructions to set you up for success. So what are the things that you're building in life? What are the things that you are intentionally working on? Whether it be your marriage, whether it be a business, whether it be becoming a better parent. And then my question is, where are the instructions? Some of us have entered into life in places where there were no instructions. There was no manual for you. You didn't see it. You never saw successful marriage. You never saw the success of being in spaces where there was a happy home. You may have never seen successful parenting. You may have never seen someone do business successfully. You may have never seen someone do what you are doing in a successful way. But I promise you that if you open yourself up to be exposed and you do some research, you'll find that there are some instructions that you can not only get from those who did it successfully, but from those who did it unsuccessfully. One of the main things I love to do is learn from people's mistakes. People say that experience is the best teacher. I am here to tell you that it is not. The observation of experience is the best teacher. Because if you can experience it, and I can see what you did wrong, and I observe that, and then apply what I've learned from your process, what do? I save myself time. I become more productive. I am able to do things at a higher speed, at a higher rate, at a higher efficiency. Why? Because I saw the mistakes of people who went before me. There is a value in going last. Everybody wants to go first. I want to get there. I need to hurry up and get there. Listen, y'all can go. I have no problem waiting on a moment that is designed for me, because what I get that is so invaluable from my purview is the observation of who went before me. Because if I can see what you did wrong, it saves me so much time. So we got to be in a space where even if there are no instructions, I can go back and now start to derive specific things that I need from those who did it wrong. Who were those that went before me? What are their biographies that I can find? What are the people who are in the spaces that I desire to be in, who have done it at a very high level? Don't just learn up, learn down. Those who made it, those who ascended, those who reached a level of success, learn from them. But also, I need to learn from those who tried and failed. Because what are the things that they did? What are the instructions that I can now put together from those who made it and those who didn't to create a fail-proof system to establish my pathway to success? Success looks different from everyone and everything, but I got to be willing to not only get instructions, get insight, to open myself up to know that it's not just my way or the highway, that I need a plan. And oftentimes I need people. Now, you may go fast alone, but we go far together. All science shows that teams win. Teams innovate faster. People have the ability to accomplish more because you have diverse perspectives. When you're around a group of people who challenge your perspective and not just think like you, where now all of your ideas look and feel exactly the same. When you're around people who think different, who are going to challenge your perspective, teams win. It doesn't matter how fast you want to get there. There's going to come a time where you're going to need somebody to help you not only follow the instructions, but to stick to them. Because one of the things that kept me going at the end, when I had to start this whole shelf over, that's why this shelf is going to stay with me forever as a reminder to follow the instruction. What's the plan? Follow the instruction. But the thing that kept me going, after I was now exhausted with this 3-hour ordeal of having to build it randomly, then tear it all down and build it all back the right way, following the different nuances. And because I knew that the directions were going to cause for me to have to do extra work that I didn't want to do from the beginning. The thing that kept me going was my wife saying, I see you. You're almost there. Wow. I can't believe you're going at it again. The way that you are doing this is just blowing my mind. I'm proud of you. When you hear those type of things, that energy, that motivation molecule starts to kick in and you want to do more of it. So you got to have people around you who not only understand the plan, but who are going to help you stick to it. What are the instructions? What's the plan for your life? Do you have one? What's the plan for your marriage? Are we just going to wake up every day and love one another? Yeah, we might. But if we don't have a plan, and I can't become intentional about our ability to scale our growth. When you don't have a plan for the good times and the bad times, people are crushed by the bad times. Because the flow that may have been okay during the good times, when the current shifts and you are just accustomed to just following the flow of the love, or following the flow of conversation, or following the flow of the river, when the current shifts and you actually have to work, you haven't created a system to know how we operate in tough times. This is why you need a plan. Because when life happens, and trust me, it will, you have to be able to follow the instructions to get to the finish line. Well, listen, that's all the time we have for today. I hope you got something out of this episode. If you found this episode valuable, consider liking it and sharing it. And know that even if you walk away from this episode and you forget everything that I've ever said, I need you to understand that you have inside of you already everything you need to overcome and succeed when life happens.